Our reading this morning is from author and Sufi teacher Llewellyn Vaughan-Lee in an article in the magazine Emergence. We live in a time of deep uncertainty, cultural and ecological crisis. What may be most needed is not more technology, but more love, care, and responsibility for one another and for the earth. These qualities are central to spiritual life, yet they sit uneasily alongside technologies that require vast amounts of energy and water and expanding data centers. We are promised a technological future, while anyone who has seen through the cracks in our present civilization knows that technology cannot save us, but rather is at the root of much of the polycrisis that confronts us. There is another story waiting to be born, one that comes from the depths of the soul and the world soul, that speaks of oneness and interconnectedness that belongs to the natural world rather than computers. This is a story that is part of our DNA, the unity of being to which we all belong. A story in the way trees speak to each other through fungal networks, how birds migrate along ancient patterns. It is visible in a murmuration of starlings, the spiral of a sunflower and galaxy. It is present in the music of creation if we are able to be silent and listen. But it needs our attention if we are to hear this story and weave it back into our human experience, to recognize the real nature of the ground under our feet. So, what is the root and the truth of the hype about AI? Every day, including this morning, we see headlines about the technology and new books, including "If They Build It, Everyone Dies," warn humanity of the need, right, exactly. And that was written by the way, tech engineers. That they are warning that we're just a few short ways away from the singularity where AI continues to train itself into more and more complex versions and spiraling beyond our control. They note the parallels between nuclear power and AI power. This power is evident in recent news, like a new alpha school proposed in Boston with AI as the only teachers, AI content flooding the internet, an AI chatbot used by Mass General Brigham getting thousands of appointments, and communities across Massachusetts fighting data centers. Today, we'll look at the benefits and challenges of this technology, explore the questions it raises about consciousness and intelligence, and suggest what individual and collective solutions there might be to its healthy use. So, some benefits of AI. ChatGPT. Academics and writers and many other professionals, including ministers and, of course, students of every age, use AI research routinely in their work. I used ChatGPT and Google AI for some of the stats in this sermon, for example. Narrow AI, or AI systems designed and trained to perform a single, highly specialized task, are also promising. Here's a few examples. The Maori, who are the indigenous people of New Zealand, built an AI system from the bottom up to save their language. NASA has built a system to explore the outer limits of the universe and are finding exoplanets and galaxies, including 31 brand new worlds. Isn't that exciting? Scientists are determining the mathematical structure of whale language and how much it resembles the structure of human language. AI has enormous possibilities in healthcare, in maximizing energy grids, in recycling systems and supply chains. And there's a dream that artificial general intelligence, or AGI, can solve problems like climate change, cancer, and biodiversity loss, though it's not clear how real that possibility is, especially since data centers seem to be moving us in the opposite direction. And there are also apocryphal stories that are hard for us to understand of the shadow sides of AI, chatbots, coaxing people to suicide, blackmailing their users, and trading in crypto behind their creators' backs. This rogue ability of AI to be growing both beyond human intelligence and human direction is what keeps AI designers and activists up at night. They argue that we need to be in charge of how AI is rolled out. Right now, companies and countries are working with an arms race mentality with few guardrails. Even where we are at this current stage of AI development, our children and we are suffering from exploitation, including the proliferation of fake images, addiction, anxiety, and depression, all the challenges of social media on steroids. Our critical reasoning skills are shown to be weakened when using AI. On a meta level, analysts are wondering if we will have a society that can think deeply enough to recognize where we are and how to extricate ourselves from a race to extinction. Other societal challenges of the technology are unemployment coupled with wealth concentration, the colonization of the commons, including land for data centers, and AI escalating the violence of war and surveillance. Just a few stats. It's estimated that AI may eliminate 15% of the workforce within a few years. Some of those workers, including thousands at Meta, have been training AI to take over their jobs, often without their knowledge or consent. This race to the bottom for workers is coupled with a wealth of those who are creating or investing in AI systems. And it's not just the Musks or the Altmans. As of March 2026, there are 114 billionaires worldwide whose wealth is directly linked to artificial intelligence. Some call our times techno-feudalism. Randy Woodley, indigenous scholar, notes that AI is a colonialism story wearing a technology costume. Woodley writes, "Every large language model was trained on the collective intelligence of the human species. It's our language, our history, our thinking. Privatizing that is cognitive enclosure, the digital equivalent of fencing off the commons. The problem of knowledge stripped from relationship is not a problem that stops at any cultural boundary," Woodley continues. "When AI scrapes a musician's entire body of work without compensation and uses it to generate music in their style, the relationship between that knowledge and its origin has been severed. When AI digests a journalist's archive to produce news-like content, the same thing happens. The indigenous experience is the sharpest version of a pattern that is restructuring how all knowledge circulates in the world and who profits from it. We also see colonization of open lands and communities through the creation of massive data centers, which are using 5% of US energy and could triple this usage in the next few years. A large data center can also consume up to 5 million gallons of water a day, including in water-stressed areas, rivaling the daily usage of a town with 50,000 residents. That's why there are so many nonpartisan community challenges to locating these centers, with 70% of Americans against them and pushback in many other countries also. It's not clear with the new energy constraints created by our war against Iran that continued growth will be viable, but either way, the AI bubble will likely not just burst, but deflate because of lack of fuel. Activists note that we are trading the biosphere for the technosphere. What is this technosphere and how does it contribute to war? Well, we know it's being used now in the months-long US-Israel war in Iran, both in the decision to launch the war and in the day-to-day decision-making of military strategists, including the targeting of the school on the first day of bombing. AI is fundamentally transforming warfare by speeding up the decision-making loop and increasing the scale of violence. This is one reason why Anthropic refused the Pentagon's demand to remove safety restrictions on its Claude AI model, which prevent its use in autonomous weapons and mass surveillance. The Pentagon later announced that it has made agreement with 8 leading tech firms to deploy their AIs on its classified networks. Of course, this weaponization is also being demonstrated on our streets. Analysts note that automated software being sold to the police, mortgage brokers, and credit lenders entrench racial, gender, and class discrimination. Algorithms running Facebook's newsfeed and YouTube's recommendation systems have likely polarized the public, fueled this misinformation and extremism, enabled election interference, and in the case of Facebook, precipitated ethnic cleansing in Myanmar. Yet tech companies continue racing to release increasingly powerful models with little regard for the societal consequences, including their ability to hack into critical systems. Tristan Harris, a technology ethicist and former Google engineer featured in the AI doc, calls for the global public to be in conversation about these generational challenges and flex our muscles of individual and collective agency. The growth and reach of AI seem unstoppable, but paradoxically are waking us up to what it is to be human. As is the case of so much of what is happening today, our technology crisis is pushing us to step up and define what matters to us as individuals and communities, not just stepping back from ever more automated war and ever more opportunities to stop thinking, but helping us to remember what is precious and unique about humans and the natural world and what we want to preserve. Here's a bit about what we are learning, about the importance of human beings, about our divided brain, and about our connection to broader fields of consciousness. To start with, a story about Sam Altman. Everybody has heard of Sam Altman. He's co-founder of OpenAI. In a presentation, he was comparing a chatbot to the energy it takes to train a human. Chatbots, he says, do require a lot of power, yes. But have you thought about all of the resources demanded by human beings across our evolutionary history? It takes like 20 years of life and all of the food you eat during that time before you get smart. Right. So when asked a follow-up question about what we need people for, Altman stumbled over his answer for several seconds. So what do we need people for? If this is not just a rhetorical question, the answer that we are recognizing is that we need each other, as well as all the creatures with whom we share the planet, as well as the planet itself, for healthy growth and functioning. Reality is relational. AI cannot replicate the human presence at the heart of roles in the care economy: teaching, nursing, child care, and elder care. We need human touch and wisdom at every level of our economy and our government and our lives. I'm going to post all these resources, so don't have to remember them. So I'm mentioning a person whom I think you'll really enjoy listening to if you go on YouTube. His name is Ian McGilchrist, and he's a psychiatrist and philosopher. And he believes that the marginalizing of human beings and the natural world is a function of AI's abstraction over reality, something also characterizing our left hemisphere. McGilchrist's latest work, a 1,500-page book with like several hundred footnotes, called The Matter with Things, Our Brains, Our Delusions, and the Unmaking of the World, summarized what he's learned about our left hemisphere and right hemisphere functioning. Our left hemisphere is narrow and mechanistic. It focuses on specific, isolated details rather than the whole, preferring mechanical and technical explanations over implicit understanding. When left to its own devices, it has a manipulative way of understanding the world. It is self-interested and competitive and has a misplaced confidence in its own perspective. We might see much of our political leadership as exemplifying a left hemisphere way of knowing. Yet the right hemisphere, in contrast, perceives interconnectedness and relationship, simplicity and contextual meaning. It has a broader, empathetic, and long-term vision of the world. To McGilchrist, AI is the logical extension of the left hemisphere's mastery of the planet, which has brought us climate change and biodiversity loss. To move forward as a species, the right hemisphere needs to be reinstated as the master of our cognition, not only to save, but to re-enchant the planet. McGilchrist believes that the greater risk is not that machines become like us, but that we become like machines, viewing our own minds and our world through a reductive computational lens. AI can be an immense help for repairing the environment and managing complex tasks, but it should remain a servant to human wisdom rather than the master of human life. There's a related explosion of understanding of our heart-brain and our connection to the broader consciousness of the planet and cosmos explored by many scientists, including those at the HeartMath Institute and the Institute for Noetic Sciences, or IONS. They argue that human intelligence, specifically the intuitive, emotional, and biological intelligence often associated with the heart, is superior to and fundamentally different from artificial intelligence. As spiritual traditions have long alluded, divinity is embodied, connected to the planet. Everywhere you look and everywhere scientists study, there is evidence of what we might call an internet of nature's or divine sentience in plants, water, animals, and rivers. Part of our heart-brain's intellectual superiority is that it can connect through the body to this consciousness beyond the brain. It also shows intuition and foresight, empathy and emotional depth, and contextual understanding. It's a kind of understanding we might draw on this Memorial Day as we remember those who have lost their lives, not just during conflicts, but also after they have returned home through cancers related to Agent Orange or other military toxins, or through suicide. At this time of war and uncertainty, do we want to rely on AI or other technologies to fight for us, to turn over our decisions to machines or our left hemisphere? We know that AI hallucinates, produces false memories, and is locked in the sense of the past that is drawn from mainstream Western sources. But what kind of memory might aid us in making better choices about the present and the future? Mark Twain quipped, "A clear conscience is the sure sign of a bad memory." Right. The best kind of memory, as we know, evolves. It questions our conscience and past choices. As we learn more of both life and death, our memories shift and change. The kind of memory exemplified in novels and movies, art forms that call on both hemispheres of the brain, give us a full-blooded accounting of war and its costs, its ugliness and pain, and the interrupted lives and youth destroyed. Stories that bring up what we could or should have done, call us to honesty and agency. We know viscerally about war, not from computers, but from novels like All Quiet on the Western Front, Johnny Got His Gun, and The Diary of Anne Frank, or movies like The Deer Hunter or Apocalypse Now, or the stories or memories of our loved ones. To extend outward, what do animals and plants remember about war? What does the earth remember? How do the fewer than 100 Arabian humpback whales, a non-migratory population who inhabit the Strait of Hormuz, experience the explosions and sonar use there? How might humanity's history of war be looked at by a cosmic intelligence? Randy Woodley, the indigenous scholar I mentioned earlier, writes, "Think about something you know deeply, not a fact you looked up, but something you actually know. The kind of knowledge that lives in your body or your memory or your sense of how things work. Maybe it's how to read the weather by the feel of the air, how to tell someone is hurting before they say so, how to grow food in a specific patch of ground, how your grandmother made a particular dish and what it meant when she made it. Now ask yourself, where did that knowing come from? Almost certainly, the honest answer involves other people, a place, time spent paying attention, relationships that taught you things you couldn't have found in a book. The knowing and relationships that produced it are not separable. Pull one out, and the other changes shape. Can we afford to outsource our memories and our sense of possible futures to machines constructed to grab our attention and sell us products and a sanitized vision of what is and can be? And how can we respond to these challenges and opportunities that AI calls us to explore? For ourselves and our children, we could prioritize social connectivity and time in nature, spaciousness to tap into the deeper wisdom of the earth and the divine, perhaps exploring digital Sabbaths. Here at UU Fairhaven, we also need spaciousness and time. There are no quick answers to our predicament, but community conversations can build memory and meaning. We can inform ourselves of challenges and recognize our own power and agency to engage them. As I say, I'll post the resources I cited here in Slack, and Laura Gardner and I would like to schedule viewings and discussions of films like The Ghost in the Machine in the fall. We can individually and collectively support educational and social practices that nourish right hemisphere functioning and heart-brain coherence, and there are many, including UU and mindfulness practices. Beyond opposing data centers, there are many political opportunities. Tristan Harris, who has co-founded a Center for Humane Technology, shares a roadmap to the future. Among the principles the center espouses, AI should be built safely and transparently. AI companies owe a duty of care to the public. AI should not automate away meaningful work and human dignity. He notes that there are many ways to change incentives for AI builders. Several other countries are restricting social media use of children and using technology more creatively. For example, China uses TikTok videos to teach science, is more cautious about AGI development, and recently passed a law that companies cannot let go of workers because of AI. AI can be dazzling in its problem-solving abilities and may lead us to some bright solutions to intransigent dilemmas, yet we need caution. Yesterday, it was reported that Trump has pulled back from the government oversight he had previously pledged to the rollout of AI. But perhaps we have an entryway into a different kind of citizen agency. We need to remind ourselves of the precautionary principle. Anybody heard of the precautionary principle? It was used a lot in the environmental movement of the 60s. And basically it states that if an action or policy has a suspected risk of causing severe harm to the public or the environment, precautionary measures should be taken even if absolute scientific cause and effect relationships are not yet fully established. This precaution would have been a good thing to engage before attacking Iran or any other country. We might note that the Amish, who are pacifist and are certainly faring as well as any communities during this time of rapid change, do not eschew all technology. Rather, they vote as a community on what technology they will use and how. They selectively adopt technology that supports family, community, and tradition while rejecting items that weaken social bonds. We can exercise our precautionary muscles, learn together, appreciate our humanness and the natural world. Last week, several of us went to Boston to learn about UU history. It was a terrific trip. And the many women and men who participated fully in the challenges of the day, of the American Revolution, of slavery and the Civil War, and the rights of women and our LGBTQ family. I am so grateful to be part of this third space that our congregation and faith represent, and grateful that we all exercise our consciousness and sovereignty every week by coming together to learn and discuss, to explore how to be at home in the world and how to protect that home. May it always be so.